Hey everyone, it's Taylor from Naptown Hustle, and we are back with another game of PDH. This is 1v1 PDH. We're playing at 25 life with no commander damage. We're in the middle of a tournament. You might have watched the first two videos. This is the first quarterfinal video, so we'll have 3 more of these, and then we'll move on to the semifinals. Today we're going to have Plaguecrafter versus Tormod and Halana. You might have seen Tormod and Halana before on this channel. It's a mid-range deck that works on graveyard synergy. Plaguecrafter is new to the channel. It is a mono-black control deck that focuses on sacrifice and edict effects. So without anything else, let's jump into it. My friend Nathan's on the right, and he opens with a tap land and passes back to me. I play a swamp as my land for turn and pass back. On his turn, he plays a forest as his land and then pays 2 for a Priest of Titania. On my turn, I play a swamp and I play a burglar rat, making him discard a morgue theft. On his turn, he untaps and draws and plays a tap land, and then pays 2 for a Sakura Tribe Elder. On my turn, I play another swamp, and then I pay 2 for an Elderfang Disciple, which makes him discard a card. He discards a Grizzly Salvage. I get in there for 1 with my rat. He blocks with his Sakura Tribe Elder, and then before damage, he sacrifices it to search his library for a land. He grabs a swamp, and it comes into play tapped. He then untaps and draws. He pays 2 for a Night's Whisper, losing 2 life and drawing 2 cards. He plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 4, including the Priest of Titania, for Tormod the Desecrator. At the end of his turn, I play Fungal Infection, giving -1/-1 to the Priest of Titania and getting a Saproling token. This lets me play my commander on my turn for 3, sacrificing the Saproling and forcing him to sacrifice his commander. I then come in for 2, taking him to 21, and pass back. He untaps and draws, and plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 2 for a cast down, killing my commander. He then pays 4 for his other commander, Halana, Kessig Ranger. On my turn, I untap and draw, and I play Obulette, which phases out Halana until Obulette leaves the battlefield. I then get in there for 2, taking him to 19. On his turn, he untaps and draws, and then pays 6 for Tormod the Desecrator again. On my turn, I untap and draw. I play a swamp as my land for turn, and then I attack for 2. He suspects something is up, so he takes it. Before damage, I ninjutsu in an Okiba Gang Shinabi, which says when it hits him, he discards 2 cards. He takes 2 more damage, and then I pass back. On his turn, he pays 1 for a Llanowar Elf, and he pays 2 more for Grapple with the Past. He puts the top 3 cards of his library into his graveyard, and then he returns a creature or a land card from his graveyard to his hand. He chooses Ambush Viper, and this triggers his commander, so he gets a 2/2 zombie. He then plays the Ambush Viper, and he attacks with his commander for 4. I take it, going to 21. And he passes back. I untap and draw. And pay 2 for Grasp of Darkness, killing his commander. I then attack with everything. He blocks the ninjutsu creature with his Ambush Viper, killing both. At the end of my turn, I play Elderfang Disciple, even though he has no cards in hand, just to get a body on the board. He untaps and draws. And he pays 6 for his commander a second time, and passes back. I untap and draw. And I attack for 2. He's still suspicious of a trick, but he decides to block the rat with his 2/2 zombie. The rat dies, and he goes to 13, and then I pay 1 for a Tragic Slip, killing his commander. I use the remaining 3 to play Liliana's Spectre. He has no cards in hand, and I pass back. He untaps and draws, and he pays 8 for his commander a third time, and passes back. I untap and draw, and I attack in the air for 2 with Liliana's Spectre, taking him to 11. I then play Feed the Swarm, which kills his commander, and I lose 4 life. I then pay 1 for a Bone Picker, which is a 3/2 flying death touch for 1 if a creature died this turn, and I pass back. On his turn, he pays 3 for a Cadaver Imp, which returns Tormod from the graveyard to his hand, and then he pays 4 to play Tormod, and passes back. I untap and draw, and I attack in the air for 5 with the 2/1 and the 3/2. He blocks the Spectre with his Cadaver Imp, killing both, and he takes 3, going to 8. In the second main phase, I pay 4 for a Slum Reaper, a 4/2 that when it enters the battlefield, both players sacrifice a creature. He sacrifices a zombie, and I pass back. On his turn, he pays 5 to flashback Morgue Theft. When he flashes it back, he gets a 2/2 tapped zombie. And then he returns Cadaver Imp from the graveyard to his hand and gets a second 2/2 tapped zombie. He then pays 3 for the Cadaver Imp, returning Crypt Rats from the graveyard to his hand, and gets another 2/2 tap zombie, and he passes back. On my turn, I untap and draw and attack with everything for 7. After thinking about blocks for a while, he decides to block the 3/2 flyer with his 1/1 flyer. In my second main phase, I pay 3 for a Filigree Familiar, gaining 2 life, and I pass back. On his turn, he untaps and draws, and he decides to attack with his 3 zombies, his commander, and his Llanowar Elf. I block the commander with my Filigree Familiar, killing both, and I draw a card. I take 7. In his second main phase, he plays Crypt Rats for 3, and he puts 2 into it, dealing 2 to both of us and killing every creature on the board. He is now at 2 life. He then plays a Elysian Carry Adalid. On my turn, I untap and draw, and finally draw the 5th land and play Grey Merchant of Asphalid, gaining 2 and dealing 2 to him, taking him to 0. So I win game 1 with Plaguecrafter, and we move on to game 2 where he will be on the play. He opens with a tap land and passes back. I also play a tap land and pass back. He untaps and draws, plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 2 for a Sacred Tribe Elder. I untap and draw, and play a swamp as my land for turn, and then pay 2 for an Elderfang Disciple. He discards a card, and I pass back. At the end of my turn, he sacrifices his Sacred Tribe Elder for a forest, and then untaps and draws. He pays 1 for a Llanowar Elf, and then pays 2 for Tapping at the Window, which lets him look at the top 3 cards of his library and put a creature card from among them into his hand and put the rest in the graveyard. He grabs the Undertaker and passes. I untap and draw, and I get in there for 1 with my Elderfang Disciple, taking him to 24, and then I play a swamp as my land for turn and pay 2 for Sign in Blood, which costs me 2 life and draws me 2 cards. I pass back. He untaps and he draws, and he pays 3 for Funeral Rites, which draws him 2, costs him 2 life, and then mills 2 cards. He plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 2 for the Undertaker, and passes back. On my turn, I untap and draw, and play swamp as my land for turn. I get in there for 1, and he takes it, going to 23. And then I pay 3 for my commander, sacrificing my 1/1. And he sacrifices his Llanowar Elf. I then pay 1 for a Bone Picker and pass back. He untaps and draws, and plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 4 for Tormod the Desecrator. After playing Tormod, he pays 1 for Way Down, exiling a card from his graveyard and killing my commander. He gets a 2/2 tap zombie because a card left his graveyard. He changes his mind about what he exiles and switches it to the Sacred Tribe Elder, deciding he might need the other one later. I untap and draw, play a tap land as my land for turn, and then get in there for 3 with my Bone Picker, taking him to 20. I then play Evokar's Justice, which deals 2 to all creatures and all players, killing every creature on the board. He untaps and draws, Plays a forest as his land for turn, and plays 3 for a Tilling Treefolk, returning 2 land cards from his graveyard to his hand. He then pays 3 for an Organ Grinder. I untap and draw, and play a Swamp as my land for turn, and then pay 3 for a Phyrexian Rager, a 2/2 that pings me for 1 and lets me draw a card when it comes into play. I then pay 1 for a Fungal Infection, killing his Organ Grinder and getting a Saproling. I then pay 2 and I exile my graveyard to get a Gurmag Angler, a 5/5 with Delve. And I pass back. He untaps and draws, and plays a Swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 6 for Tormod the Desecrator a second time. I untap and draw, and I play a Swamp as my land for turn. I then decide to pay 5 for my commander a second time, sacrificing the Saproling and making him sacrifice the Tilling Treefolk. I then pay 2 for Geth's Verdict, which shoots him for 1 and makes him sacrifice a creature. I attack for 7 with the Phyrexian Rager and the Gurmag Angler, taking me to 10. He untaps and draws, and pays 2 for a Sign in Blood, taking himself to 8 and drawing 2 cards. He then pays another 2 for Ransack the Lab, which lets him look at the top 3 cards of the library and put 1 in his hand and the rest in the graveyard. He then pays 2 for a Thornwield Archer, a 2/1 with Reach and Death Touch. With that, he passes the turn back. I play a Swamp as my land for turn, and then play Chainer's Edict for 2. He responds with a Diabolic Edict. I sacrifice the Phyrexian Rager, and he sacrifices his Thornwield Archer. I attack for 8 with the Gurmag Angler and my commander, taking him to 0 and ending the game. So Plaguecrafter wins the quarterfinal, and Tormod and Halana is out of the tournament. That was a tough game for Tormod and Halana to lose the commander over and over and over again. I knew that if that commander stuck on the board, he was going to get a ton of zombies and I was not going to be able to recover. So it was so important to keep that Tormod off the board as much as possible. Thanks for playing, Nathan, and good game. So here's where we stand in the tournament results after today. The next game is going to be Slippery Boggle versus Finn the Fangbear. So comment down below who you think is going to win the whole tournament and who you think is going to win the next game. Thank you for watching this all the way to the end, and have a good one.